Picture this. You're at a family reunion and Uncle Sam is having the world's messiest divorce. On one side, you've got the suit-wearing control freaks insisting someone needs to balance the checkbook. On the other, you've got the freedom-loving rebels who think any government stronger than a neighborhood watch is basically tyranny. Welcome to 1787, where America's founding fathers were basically having the political equivalent of a custody battle over an entire continent. Most history classes will tell you the Constitutional Convention was some dignified gathering of powdered wig philosophers politely debating governance. Wrong. This was a cage match between two fundamentally different visions of what America should become, and the stakes couldn't have been higher. We're talking about the moment that would determine whether the United States would become a functional nation or collapse into 13 squabbling mini-kingdoms faster than you could say, taxation without representation. Let's rewind to 1781 and meet America's first attempt at government, the Articles of Confederation. Imagine trying to run a country with the organizational structure of a college group chat where nobody actually responds to important messages. That's essentially what the Articles were. Each state got one vote regardless of size, there was no executive branch to actually enforce anything, and Congress couldn't even collect taxes without politely asking each state pretty please with a cherry on top. The result? America was broke, militarily impotent, and about as unified as a bag of angry cats. States were printing their own money, setting up trade barriers against each other, and generally acting like 13 separate countries that happened to share a continent. It was democracy's awkward teenage phase, complete with identity crisis and questionable decision-making. Then came the wake-up call nobody wanted but everybody needed. Shays Rebellion in 1786. Daniel Shays, a Revolutionary War veteran, led a group of debt-ridden Massachusetts farmers in an armed uprising against state courts that were foreclosing on their properties. These weren't wild-eyed radicals, these were the same men who had fought for American independence. But now they were pointing their muskets at American courthouses because they couldn't pay taxes that seemed designed to crush them. Suddenly, maximum liberty didn't look so appealing when it came with a side order of maximum arson. The rebellion exposed the fundamental flaw in America's libertarian experiment. Without some form of order and authority, freedom becomes indistinguishable from chaos. You can't have property rights if there's no system to protect property. You can't have economic liberty if there's no stable currency. You can't have individual freedom if society is collapsing around you. This is where our story gets interesting, because the response to Shays' Rebellion revealed the great ideological divide that would define American politics for the next 2 centuries. The future Federalists looked at the burning courthouses and said we need a stronger central government immediately. The future Anti-Federalists looked at the same scene and said the real problem is that we're not free enough. Both sides were partially right, which made them completely incompatible. The Federalists, led by intellectual heavyweights like Alexander Hamilton and James Madison, understood something crucial: freedom requires infrastructure. You need courts that can enforce contracts, a military that can defend borders, and a government with enough authority to prevent states from economic warfare against each other. They weren't power-hungry tyrants. They were practical men who realized that liberty without order is just expensive anarchy. But here's where the traditionalist perspective gets really interesting. The Anti-Federalists weren't just paranoid conspiracy theorists afraid of big government. They were the constitutional equivalent of security experts testing for vulnerabilities. While the Federalists were busy designing this beautiful new system of checks and balances, the Anti-Federalists were asking the uncomfortable questions. What happens when this system gets corrupted? What protections do ordinary citizens have against government overreach? The Anti-Federalists looked at human nature and saw the same thing the Federalists did. People are ambitious, self-interested, and prone to abusing power. But their solution wasn't to create a more sophisticated power structure, it was to limit government power so severely that abuse became impossible. They were essentially saying that the best way to prevent tyranny is to make sure government never gets strong enough to be tyrannical in the first place. This wasn't just political philosophy, this was applied psychology. The Anti-Federalists understood that once you give government certain powers, you can never really take them back. They'd lived through the gradual expansion of British authority in the colonies, watching as reasonable security measures slowly transformed into oppressive control. They knew that every government starts by promising to protect your freedom and ends by explaining why you never really needed it anyway. The genius of the American system that eventually emerged wasn't that one side won and the other lost. It's that both sides got what they needed most. The Federalists got their strong federal government capable of maintaining order and defending the nation. The Anti-Federalists got their Bill of Rights and constitutional limitations that made government power accountable to the people. The Federalists built the House, creating the basic structure of federal authority that could function in the real world. But the Anti-Federalists installed the locks, the alarm system, and the escape routes that would protect individual liberty from government overreach. Without both elements, the system fails. This wasn't just a political compromise, it was a masterpiece of institutional design that recognized a fundamental truth about human nature. We need both order and freedom, and we need them in constant tension with each other. Don't forget to like and subscribe for more deep dives into the moments that shaped America.